Welcome again to another rendition of WTF Interviews. My name is Sir Royce Briales, and I'm with my prestigious co-host, Dr. Raheem Young. How's it going?
All is well, man. Everything's good on this end. How about you?
Yeah, man, same here, man. I'm gonna say go White Sox and go Astros. That's how I'm gonna start this. But we got a young man on the phone. Hold on one second. All right, here we go. I have William Deck on the line. How's it going, my brother?
Doing well this evening. I'm glad to be a part of this conversation. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so first question we normally ask William is how many kids you got, what are their ages, and what do you do professionally?
No, I appreciate that. So my wife and I have two children. One little boy named after me, so he's William B. Deck III, and then I have a almost 3-year-old daughter, Sophia, and so they're definitely the focus of our lives. And I did not already mention my wife's name is Lauren, and what I do is I have my own consulting firm. The name of the firm is called Mind Business LLC, and a lot of the work that I do is really focused in on mindset transformation, or another term is mental fitness. And so I started the business just over a year ago, really at the very beginning of the pandemic, kind of seeing some of the early signs of the challenges people were facing personally and professionally with just this entire new, pandemic environment. And I think we've been seeing how it's been impacting children, the elderly, pretty much everybody across the world has been touched by this. And so thinking about ways to provide tangible yet intangible tools on how to really help to mentally and emotionally navigate our world, how to really work on things that we should have been working on as a society for a long time ago, like, self-confidence, how to handle conflicts, and, how that's impacting work culture and all these different things. So whether it's personally and professionally, and it has something to do with mindset, that's really what I focus in on, and I customize my solutions around my clients. And so that's just kind of been the focus. And I've had my own journey over 15 years of this really, personal awakening and mindset shift that has allowed me to be able to take the next steps in my life and go higher and higher, especially over the past 5 years, once I understood what was getting in my way, which is me, and how to get out of my own way. So.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. So how do you get someone to change or to shift their mindset?
Yeah, I think it's really a combination of things. So first and foremost, it has to be an individual or an organization that it is willing to say that, hey, I'm having a challenge, I'm having a problem here, something invisible that is in my mind is impacting me. So from an organizational perspective, the approach is really about, doing a good, needs analysis. And as opposed to saying, I'm going to focus on working on processes, for me, I try to focus more on the intangible components, which impact culture, but it's really all about, what are some of the cultural challenges going on? What's the conversation like, right? If the conversation within the organization is negative, it's for a reason. Same things for individuals. So a lot of work that I do with organizations, it's really about once everything's been identified as what the challenges or opportunity sets are, I've created my own curriculum that really is step by step through the mindset transformation process. So it's really about the educational side, but it's also conversation that is conducted through every workshop. So I'm not sitting there just teaching. We're also having conversation. I'm giving personal examples. I've also created self-assessments. And so what all this stuff is really built to do is to help individuals within the organization begin to look within and saying, what can I do to be a part of the solution? How can I be adjusting my attitude and mindset towards myself? Because personal challenges are called because of personal reasons. It's usually not, I had an issue on the job, but now I'm having personal issues. It's usually the opposite. But whichever way it started, we have to, as an individual and as an adult, be able to get very clear on what the challenges or the blind spots are, so we have an opportunity to work on them. But from a group environment, once again, the group education and the conversation helps everyone to be learning some of the same things, some of the same mental principles at the same time. But then what that solution is for each individual is for them to find out. So I just help them to uncover and get very clear on what it is. And then let's begin the process of replacing negative ideas and belief systems as a team, as well individually, so that if you have negative belief systems about yourself, about your potential, until you replace that idea with a positive idea, it's going to continue to repeat over and over in your head, like a recording, because that's how the subconscious mind or our deeper mind is trained. It's through repetition. So you have to go into the code of the mind, which is the core belief systems, and adjust those to begin to basically read the story or have the code read in the way in which it's going to help you align with whatever your long-term goals or the changes you want to make. Because if you don't believe it in your heart, not just your mind, but in your heart, which is your subconscious, the change is not going to happen. So we're on changing, helping you change the code. Not telling you how to do it, but helping you to see it, to understand it, and ultimately replace those negative ideas and belief systems and replace them with positives. Because until then, I've tried everything. I've done research for the past 15 years. Until you get to that subconscious, it's going to be short-term, motivation-based things that will get people to kind of turn away from what their challenges are, or to have a financial incentive or whatever else the companies do. But ultimately, you're going to go back to your natural set point, which is whatever that negativity is. And so that is, in not too many words, because I don't want to continue to explain and go into more detail, that is the actual path to do it. Because people have to see it for themselves and want to do it for themselves. Till then, I can say nothing. I can be Les Brown. I'm not going to be able to say anything good enough to make you want to change your mind because you're grown. I have to lead you there and help to include things like the science behind it and mental principles, that are backed up, everything from the Bible to metaphysics at this point. Science is backing up the word. So it's pretty interesting. You can have a very diverse conversation and point in different directions. All this wisdom is saying the same thing in different ways. Yeah. Now, what are you going to do about it? You now have the tools over usually a 3 to 6, usually 3, and most times 6-month periods. You now have the tools. So now what are you going to do as an adult, right? So.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I have questions. First question I had was, how has your professional experience, like all the things that you've been through, in your role, how has that impacted you as a father?
I would say, first and foremost, I've been on my entrepreneurial journey for just under a year, like working for myself. Yeah. But overall, in my career, I came in with a lot of great advice and great mentors early. And so that really helped me to have a balanced perspective. However, then I have my own experiences, and there were opportunities for me to get jaded along the way. And usually for a man of color or people of color, that is phrased, well, they won't allow me to do this, or, they're trying to hold me back, or this boss or that person. So whether we're talking about white folks or we're talking about whatever it is, I had opportunities to take that bait and to go in that direction as far as what's coming out of my mouth, which means it's in my heart. I was lucky enough to have good people in my corner to challenge me to look within and say, what can I be doing differently? And if it's something to be addressed with a leader, okay, yes, address that. But if it's also something that was attitude-based, I had people help me along the way, and I just had thirst to understand what are the keys to success. And I learned early in the game, it was primarily mental. It was a mental battle and a mental alchemy almost to begin to kind of formulate and guide, your actions, which creates your life. So as a father, learning how to navigate the mental hurdles that were out there, definitely, that I could easily have tripped over. And I did trip a few times. Luckily, I didn't stay down. I got right back up and kept on going. As a father, it's really helped me to look at the way I approach and lead, and basically have to train up my children, right, in a way that is not just compassionate, but thoughtful. Trying to, even though they're very young, trying to understand them, their little, personality traits and things like that. And how can I be present with them? How can I be supporting them? Making sure that we're giving the proper guidance and discipline, but we're not breaking their spirit, making sure that they feel empowered, right? And what did that look like for a small child? I'm really good at stuff with adults, but with small children, it's been a learning lesson for me because it's different. I'm good with older people, but with small children, even though I had younger siblings, I realized I needed to understand or seek to understand them, as well as continue to try to guide them. So Just understanding that psychological piece is important, and they're absorbing things. Even at my son 10 months and my daughter 3 years old, they're observing my behavior. They're observing Wife's behavior, what we say, how we say it. Are we showing grace? We just punishing, penalizing off top, right? That's very old school, but and I grew up in the South, so I had to really question myself when I like, okay, this is what I want to be teaching him, and especially my daughter. You were like, are these the habits that I want to be teaching them? So okay, so my wife and I, we've been doing a lot of studying, and but it is all mental, because even then, it's like you don't want to be too hard on yourself. So work kind of set me up to understand how I can get started and look within quickly if I feel like things are off kilter, not doing any blaming, and giving myself a little bit of um, grace along the way as well. Not just my children, but give myself grace, and not trying to be the perfect dad, just trying to be what they need and learn. So,
which relationship has challenged you to change or to grow more as a man? Your relationship with your wife or your relationship with your children?
that's a good question. I would say early on, before we had children, it was definitely my wife. Still is, but we've grown a lot together. Most recently, though, I have to say over the past year, it's been my daughter, because once again, she's a little girl, and it's just different. Like, it's not different in a way that like they're treated, or like I don't do that. Like, I treat my children the same for the most part, because they're young. Now, as they get older, that would change. But my daughter, she's so smart, and she's so much like me as far as being inquisitive and things like that. So like, so she's really challenged me as far as on the patient side, because I'm learning she has a very strong imagination. So sometimes now that she's not listening to me or her mom, she's really engaged in whatever activity she's in. And we have her Montessori school as well. And so the past year, especially the past 6 months, my relationship with her has really challenged me to say, okay, am I understanding her where she is at this age? They're sponges, that they want to learn. They're going to have the tantrums, all the different kind of things. And she's starting to talk and express herself in different ways. So I'm seeing her grow quickly now, right? In more of the little human ways that adults can relate to better. And so she's really challenging me to reassess a lot. And it's been good, because that compassion thing I mentioned earlier, that compassion has really been challenged, but in a positive way. And so I'm just having to slow down, not react. She doesn't always just need me to be a disciplinarian or the protector. She needs me to just get in her world, right? And I've been getting in her world more, which has been interesting, because I found myself on the floor with, we're doing Baby Shark and other things. And they were like, I wasn't doing that before. But now it's like, before I respond, let me get in her world for a minute. I've been working all day. I've had client meetings. I've been doing all the adulting stuff. Let me walk through the door and, of course, engage my wife for a little bit, and then get my kids' world. And it's actually helped me to just like chill and relax and decompress in the evenings, because, kids have no cares. Children are pure. And, we as adults so many times are striving that we can miss the mark just by trying to do too much, as opposed to just being who we are. And our children, kids, they just are who they are. And it's a beautiful thing. Even the honesty, what they say and do, it's like, yeah, that's real, So it's been good.
I normally ask this question towards the end, but I'm kind of compelled to ask now. I already asked you the question, William. The question was, what does fatherhood mean to you? And you gave a great answer. I want to read it. You said it means being an example of love, compassion, and courage. When my children look into my eyes, I want them to see no fear and boundless faith. Powerful. So,
yeah.
You elaborate on that a little bit more for me, if you will.
Yeah, for me, I didn't mention it at the very beginning, but my parents were divorced when, or my parents got divorced when I was 6 going on 7 years old. And so when we moved from South Carolina to Texas to Houston, it was partially due to the divorce, but also just small town mindset. At the time, Greenville was a very small town mindset, boys getting in trouble, getting into drug in the early 90s, so getting in the dope game, had family in DC. So, there was, pushing, it was real out there in the streets, and I was one of the younger boys at the time. And so my mom saw that and wanted to get us away, and parents got divorced. And I think that was the last reason to move. So I grew up long distance from my dad. I'm my dad's namesake, and my mom ended up, getting remarried, but I knew my dad. And so I never really felt 100%, and I never wanted to accept another man as my father because I knew my father. And many times I just didn't feel that fatherly protection because my dad wasn't there. My dad wasn't there. My stepfather was present, but my dad wasn't there. And I struggled with understanding how to be a man because my stepfather was not always the best example. He was a great man, but in many ways very emotional and not making good, solid, grounded decisions because his father was not there from generation past, right? And so he didn't understand how to be a man. And I realized in my early 20s, I didn't know. I got in an argument with one of my ex-girlfriends years ago, probably 15 plus years ago. And one thing that she said stuck with me. We were arguing about something. And one thing that I remember her blurting out in the middle of an argument was she was like, "Why don't you be a man?" And I remember in that moment, it just stopped me. Like not just physically, but my whole being responding like, and I answered internally without even being able to say it. How? I don't know how to be a man. And that moment stuck with me for years after. And it really was one of those things, sort of like a watershed moment, like this is even more important. I need to strengthen my relationship with my father. I need to know him to get pieces and clues of why I am the way I am. And over that next few years, I got much closer with my dad. And long story short, coming full circle in my late 20s, I finally truly understood the power of a father and having connectedness to not just your dad, but your family's history, and so many other things. So when I think about fatherhood, I first and foremost made a commitment to myself that whomever I marry, my intent is to make it all the way to the grave. I want our children to see that, but also beyond just that, right? That's like just an idea and a goal. I don't ever want them to feel the absence of their father's love, compassion, and protection. And that falter in different situations and not handle them the right way, and anxiety and stress and lashing out on people. And in my mind, one way that I could show and be a good father, be a good example, is by not just showing strength, but being strong and being steadfast and unmovable, right? And so I took that seriously as I've gotten older. And I want my children, and I believe that they're seeing that so that they know that they're protected. They know that their father loves them, that their father is present with them, and that in this earth realm, they don't have anything to worry about because daddy got you. And I didn't always feel that for the reasons aforementioned. And so when I think about it in act, deed, and even when they look me in my eyes, I want them to see daddy's not faking strong or faking secure. He is. And because of that, I can. So whether that's my son or if I have future or another boy or my daughter or future daughters, they need to know that and be able to feel it in their chest. And I don't want to just be a symbol. I want to live that out. Honor, integrity, and family are the three pillars that I'm very serious about. And I don't know, it's just something that about when I look in my father's eyes now as an adult, even as a grown man at 35 years old, it does something for me when I get a chance to spend time with it in person. It's to see his smile and his gaze. There's something very royal about it. And I think our people have lost that. We've lost the power of our fathers. And now that I'm not the kid anymore, I'm not the athlete, the high school kid playing ball, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's real out here. Even more so, families need that. And this is my family, and it's my responsibility to do it the right way and make mistakes, get back on my feet. But that black male strength is something that cannot be replaced. This isn't a race thing at all, but we different. And when you're doing it the right way, you are powerful. And I'm learning that more and more. I'm hearing that even from friends and people that see our family here in Milwaukee. And they're like, man, you guys are powerful. Like, just posting stuff on Facebook, like the young black solid family. And I'm like, I mean, I'm just thinking like, this is just, we're just doing what everybody should be doing, or what we think we should be doing, right? But
Mhm.
I'm seeing that, I'm like, it just reminded me of that. So when I saw the question, I was like, yeah, but from a child's perspective, then you be looking in daddy's eyes and knowing daddy's there. Daddy got you, right? Um, and I think all of us can, in different ways, explain what that is. And unfortunately, many of us have not been able to experience that. But it ain't gonna be my kids. If I'm alive, I'm gonna be present in their lives. This ain't gonna be no long distance. I see you on the weekend shit. Excuse my language.
No,
I,
you
I,
good.
I can't allow that to happen. I lived it. I was that child. And so that is a part of my legacy. And so I'll stop there. But it's so important to me because I was blessed to see the other side of reconciliation and presence with my dad. And even as a grown man, as I mentioned, it means so much to me. And it does something for me just to be in his presence. And there's always been something about the eyes. You can see a man or woman's soul when you look in their eyes. And I think there's something spiritual about that. So I think that we'll be able to tell them things without me having to even speak words, especially as they get older. And we can get as deep as this as we want to, but I think it's that important. This is DNA, y'all. This is everything, man. So that's why I
That's
get
real.
fired about this fatherhood thing, because it's a spiritual calling. I ain't talking about religion. I'm talking about spiritual, right? Like,
Mm.
so yeah.
You you said something that hit me in the head, kind of, and I just well, when you were telling your story about the girlfriend, your ex-girlfriend, and she said, "Why don't you be a man?"
Mm-hmm.
It made me think, like, are women, like, do men ask, well, do men say the same thing to women, or are women, like, or little girls, like, socialized to be women from the beginning? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if we're just, you know, talking off script and it's just us, right? I think a lot of times, unfortunately, in more households, I think it's about 50% across the board, all the way around. But especially in the Black household, and I don't like using that term, but in the Black household, it's
Mhm.
been something that is almost been commoditized, like an expectation. And
Yeah.
I think because, and I did after doing some research, really understanding spirituality at a deeper level, looking at the history of it, the first God that was ever represented in any kind of form, like in stone, it was actually the Black woman. I heard people say stuff like that, but like, okay, whatever. But no, man, it's real. Like,
Mm.
this is pre-Egypt. So I think our women have innate ability to be able to play those roles, even though they're not, they shouldn't have to. And if a woman is having to raise their children, they're going to teach their children or their daughter how to be strong, because they had to be strong. But I tell you this also, and this hit me in the head as I got older, as you said. My mom was very strong. My stepdad was there and present, but he traveled all the time. The relationship was tumultuous at times. So it was really almost like still having my mom there most consistently, more than 50% of the time, because he was always traveling for work. But I remember, and I'm sure she won't mind me saying this, but I remember about a decade ago, after my stepdad, who's since passed away, my mom was remarried about 3 years ago. After all those years of frustration, and they finally split up, I remember, she was kind of back with my younger, taking care of herself. She had been working anyway, but I remember her calling and talking to me, and sometimes crying about being so frustrated, having to do everything, having to
Mm.
be everything to everybody. And I never heard that side of my mom. She was she was handling the business. I knew there were challenges. I didn't understand them. But my mom, the strong woman that I always saw her be, talking to me, and I'm grown now, in my late 20s, crying and just so frustrated with having to do everything, having to be the man, having to be this, and she didn't want to do it. She was like, I don't want to do this. Um, not that she wouldn't, but like, I'm tired of having to play that. Like, I can't be a father to with my youngest brother. Like, and so my stepdad was still around, but she just felt that pressure. And
Mm.
so I saw something. I saw a glimpse in what it was like. Because my mom was always strong. She never complained, but then get growing, and she was just like, she was breaking down. And it's been so beautiful, just kind of to bring this full circle. Since she met about 6 years ago, my new stepdad, Ariel, and I hear this girlish giggle in her voice. So they'll be like joking around and playing. I'll be on the phone and they'll be, giggling in the background. I'm like, she sounds like she's 15 years old, but I realize my mom hasn't been able to do that or was not able to for so many years. Just like the kid in her is coming out and she's just enjoying life. My now stepdad takes great care of her and loves her in every way. And she's just living the life and just so happy now. So I understand why mothers do it, no matter what background they're from. I think it's just been socialized and really, satirized as that's just what Blackness should be. The struggle, Black women raising their kids, having to be hard. And I think that's nonsense. And so even with some of the shows I used to love to watch things like that, I've had to change what I watch and that's around my kids and the way I talk because that's not funny no more. If I just assessing my own life, that's jacked up. And it is a deep spiritual wound. And learning more about DNA, you guys want to talk about this, that pain is passed down.
Yeah.
I ain't talking about just like stuff that happened 300 years ago and, 40 acres of the mill. I'm talking about like right now, like the trauma, the pain, the fear, it passes down in the DNA. And I very strongly believe that those who have been some of the violators in these areas knew and still know what they're doing. And so I think it's socialized. I understand better why it's happening, but it is still a very deep spiritual violation. This ain't just stuff we're seeing on TV and shaking your head. This is a disrespect for our future, which is our children, our grandchildren, if as individuals, because that's something we control, if we are a part of that problem and a part of that perpetuation that is deeply ingrained. And we got a lot of work to do individually and collectively to get that out of our spirit because it's deep, but it's also, I think, time for us to make some changes. So unfortunately, it is a thing. It shouldn't be though. But who am I to say? Because I've experienced all sides of it. I'm just saying I want to be a part of the solution, and have conversations and do work and do my part in my own household first and foremost to reset a better standard, which is peace and harmony, which is connectedness, which is mom and daddy getting along and not perfect, but present, right? Like, and just trying to be progressive. So in our generations, a lot of us, it's like we're like the first generation to either to be in the process of getting it right, really intent about getting it right. And so then you still have to learn, how do I do this now? So that, why don't you be a man thing, I think echoed a little bit, even though on both of my dad's side, great granddaddy was there, granddaddy was there, and daddy was there. And my parents ended up getting divorced. So then I saw a little bit of it. But I was able to see my grandparents, together until they died and stuff like that. And that was helpful too. And I was a little boy. So for little girls, when daddy's not there, daddy's confidence, daddy's security for boys and girls, for children. If daddy says it's going to be all right, it hit different than if mom says it's going to be all right. And if daddy's not there, I felt it. And I can only imagine what a young girl would be feeling in some challenging times of her life. So if she was to be afraid or an abusive relationship with a man who's not her daddy, all these things, I can only imagine what they would be thinking and feeling. And so, but see, those end up being spiritual wounds. And it's happened 1, 2, 3 generations. You have, our beautiful sisters, they didn't fed up, they got it in their system, and we do too in different ways. Examples. And then we have manifestations that now they pretty much making fun of our ass. And of course, as y'all are in Chicago, so they want to point out Chicago, they want to point out these other cities and what they're doing in New Orleans and this. That's a look, man. That they've been satirizing us, and this stuff ain't funny, not at all. But I think it's also on the flip side, it's because they know how powerful we are, and even with all this stuff, we are still the leaders for culture. So from a spiritual perspective, the entire world still looks at quote unquote Black America. Like I said, I use that term Black very loosely because there's nothing good about that term. And that's not us. We're not Black. Black is a color on a piece of paper. It's not us. So
yeah, it's not a label. You're right about that, man.
Black.
uh,
Nope.
you spoke on your dad and how you guys rebuilt your connection
Yeah.
after they got divorced.
Yeah.
What was one of the biggest lessons you learned from your dad during that time? What was your dad like? What's your dad like?
I think the biggest lesson I learned was forgiveness. I didn't necessarily hold a huge grudge against him because I loved him so much, and it wasn't like he wasn't never there. Nothing. Like he was, but when he got divorced, moved away. I think the biggest thing I learned though was forgiveness, because there were so many questions that went unanswered for years. And when I finally got the answers that I wanted, it didn't necessarily give me the release that I thought it was going to be. It was really more about being able to, now that we're reconnected, to watch his example. And it was less about what he said or didn't say. It was more about what he did and how he handled his business. And just by observing my father, that was the best thing for me. Observing a healthy relationship between him and my stepmom, and how my stepmom, really has always undergirded him, and how he, in kind always has taken care of her. And so like, so just to be able to see that for in my soul, that did me more good than anything. So spending time with my dad, hearing how they handle conflict and things like that, I would say in my life, that's been the most influential relationship for male female, is actually my dad and my stepmom, because my dad took on three girls who are now my stepsisters, and took care and helped to raise them, once he got remarried. And to hear them talk about my father, it's a very different story than what I think I was exposed to and heard until I got to know my father, as an adult. And all those things are very powerful for me, because if you speak about a boy's daddy, you're talking about him. And that, once again, on the spiritual side of things, it just does something for you. So I think that was the biggest lesson, just once again, um, forgiveness. But then on the back end, it was about just observing who my dad was and what it was like just to be a stable, solid man. Not perfect, but just stable and solid, community, God respecting the community, just doing the right stuff. Um, Something I can't even explain. It just hits you in all the right places. And because that's your daddy, that's you too, right? Uh, so yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very powerful, man. Thanks for sharing that.
Yep. Absolutely.
So let me ask you, if you can go back to your younger self and
Mhm.
give your, I guess, 18, 19, 20-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
Um, I think I would tell my 18 or 19-year-old self to be patient. Um, I found that I was very impatient, and a big reason why I was impatient, whether it was with the pathway to success, getting things figured out. I always wanted to try to solve things quick, fast, in a hurry and move on to the next thing, as opposed to trying to learn lessons from experiences and opportunities, right? I think and I realized, rather not think, the reason why I was so impatient was because I had an invisible clock in the back of my head that always kind of had me running internally. I kind of always felt like I needed to prove something. Like, if I once I, one thing I know is big in my generation / our generation, um, it was, once you get to $100,000 in your career, you made it. Or other little kind of pie in the sky ideas that are not bad in themselves, but it was like, once I get there, then I think when I was telling myself that I can prove or show that I'm a man and I got it together, right? And so I spent a lot of time hurrying, like trying to build my career. And if I wasn't promoted in a year or two, I was like frustrated. And why aren't they seeing my talent and these other different things, that internally it was a voice saying, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You haven't gotten that fast enough. You're behind. And once I was able to really, through understanding the principles of, this mental universe that we live in, consciousness itself, I was able to actually identify those voices. What were they telling me and why? And I was able to go back and identify it was really just about that voice that had been there for so many years, that was really sitting around trying to prove myself, trying to do this. And even after I reconnected with my dad, because in my younger years, it had become a habitual pattern of thinking, it was still there. So external experience was not impacting what had to be an internal revelation and ultimately a change. And so what coming full circle with that was having to forgive myself for trying to be something as opposed to being my authentic self in every way, including being patient and understanding the process that it takes to be anything, and ultimately reorganizing my priorities. And once I got less money focused and less proving it focused, to embracing every single day, which my dad had been telling me for the past 15 years, take it a day at a time. Once I began to do that, then just like it says in the word, all these things should be added unto you. But I think part of that revelation is a psychological, Psalms 23 style, trusting and just childlike faith and just doing what you need to do every single day, but not stressing and worrying, not being afraid. And all those things have come, and it's been really, really interesting. So, yeah.
I'm interested, man. We've been talking about a lot of, mental, universe, things that, people don't normally talk about in detail and really get into the weeds. And, I've been reading a couple books, man. I got audio books I play to my kids when we drive in the car. Like, we listen to Neville Goddard sometimes. Like, we
Yeah.
got books like that. So
Mhm.
I open them up to things like that. And I've been open up to it, and I've been kind of, doing my own research and my own experiences. For yourself, what would be a book that you would say you would recommend for a guy that's interested in learning more about the universe and how things are conceived and how things look, in regards to those books?
Yeah, I would say there are two books. One is The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a good.
that was a really good one.
Yeah.
And another one that I think was the beginning of my spiritual awakening. Once again, not religious, but spiritual. Still a man of faith, but I understand it so much better now because of that journey. The second book is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And that is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. That was the first book I ever read and got exposed to the ideas of like the ego and the super ego and all those different things that basically, help to identify the negative and positive voices in your own head that either can work for you or against you. I had never heard of it, and this was like 2005 or six. And that book, Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth, it just my mind. I didn't even know how to process. It took me a couple years to really process it, but it was just like, so it was giving me a glimpse of how I was going to begin to take back control of my mind and these negative patterns that have been built up over the years for so many different reasons. And and many people feel like, you got this negative voice in your head, you can't get it out. You just kind of feel like you're a victim of circumstance. But that's just not true. It's not true. And once you understand that, then your life changes because now you're empowered to do something and just learning the tools, and you work on your mental fitness just like you work on your physical fitness. And so
Yeah, I got to check out the A New Earth. Definitely, that's like a real good one.
yeah,
And
yeah. And his last name is Tolle, and his first name is Eckart. Eckhart
you got it. Yep,
Tolle. Yeah.
yep. Found them on Amazon. Yep. See, that's another one.
Mm.
Appreciate that, bro. Yeah, because it's definitely a lot of power in that and knowing, having that knowledge. Once you got that knowledge, like you can't unlearn that.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you break that down to your kids? Uh, like what and getting that information. How do you make them understand that?
So I mean, right now they're very young. So just thinking about myself, how I've learned the most impactful things is observation. And so right now I think how I actually um, show that through just my consistent behaviors. Once again, and then working on things like I was talking about earlier with my daughter about understanding compassion and different things like that at a different level, and how to really connect with my children at the age that they are now. I think showing it. and through behaviors and actions and words and intentions. Because just like adults, kids can feel. You say one thing, but based on the way you say it, your energy, they can feel it. One way can make them feel good and smile, other way can make them cry. So with energy and with intention and with behaviors, I think right now is the best thing. And I don't know this to be true, but I'm guessing it'll probably be very similar as they get older at the end of the day. Because if you say something and you don't do it, that's not going to work with kids. You got to be about it and not just talk about it. So yeah, I think that is what I've learned thus far. And of course, I'm always learning. So it could be something different in 6 months.
So what do you think is like the biggest thing you've learned in life?
Mhm.
And if you could pass one thing down to your children as far as like principles or morals that you live by, what would that be?
Oh man, that is a good one. I would say the one thing, I'm gonna have to say it two different ways, but I think I'll be saying the same thing. So the first way that it can be to respond is that anything is possible. So there's no limitations on you. Um, but another way that I'm really compelled to say that is the reason why nothing is possible is because we're infinite beings that come from an infinite source, um, and we can create um, and change situations and circumstances, and starting with our thinking. And the reason why all things are possible is because if we're in the image and the likeness, then that means also attributes. So we are more powerful than we know. And so with my children, one thing I want them to understand, and that's why I think I mentioned earlier, I kind of alluded to the fact that I don't want my children to look themselves as Black folks or African Americans. That's a 33-year-old term, and it's false. You can't be a continent and a landmass. That's not a people. Um, so that's something that's very, very important. And one detail that I will give that I think is also important, because I'm hearing more and more people talk about it, and I think it's just time for our people to be able to expand their mind, know a little more. One of the reasons why I'm so adamant about just the fact that we are infinite beings, we're spirit, and we have infinite possibilities, but also I think it's very important now because their history, and we can go back almost 300 years on my mom's side, um, and we can go back almost as far on my dad's side, and on both sides, our history, 100%, as far as where it starts, is Native American. We are Cherokee Indians. So we know that we didn't come from Africa. We know it. We know our history. As a matter of fact, I have a living grandmother or a living grandmother of one of my first cousins, who was 110 years old, and she's on a Cherokee reservation to this day. And she remembers my great grandfather, who was a Cherokee Indian chief that that was the chief and that owned, and that was the leader of the land along the Santee River on the east coast of South Carolina. It's very important. And I'm not trying to say, well, this, all I'm saying is the established narrative is untrue. And from a history, we are the only people that can't trace back our sources from, in a general sense. Because I grew up in Houston, my friends are Nigerian. They know their village.
Yeah.
We got to do that. And I can trace back. I know where the land was, and my aunts remember my great grandfather at his old age, angry. He was still living in his teepee, but angry because they had stole his land. So I know that we are Cherokee Aboriginals, look like us all the way across the world, those over there in Australia, right?
Yeah.
They all brown skinned folks with curly hair, and it's very important that our folks begin to wake up. I'm not saying everybody this and nobody. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is my history tells me, and I know I'm not from Africa, and that's not a bad thing. My friends are from Africa, but they know what that tribe.
Yeah.
Our history was not stolen from us, as far as not being able to find it. We just don't. We've been socialized to believe over less than the past 100 years, because that's what almost all of us, our grandmama and them, our great grandmama and them, I always said we was part Blackfoot Indian. Well,
Yeah.
almost all of our grandparents saying that. We want
You have Indian in your family.
that's
Yeah, it's a blanket statement. Like, which
okay.
one though? Which one? Like, you don't know that though.
Exactly, because most of them who knew that have passed on, and the education system has changed a lot of that. So I don't want to go into a complete rabbit hole, but that is one component that for me, I'm so thankful that I have aunts and grandparents who kept that alive, and there ain't no guessing, and we think, and that was a damn trick, and we need to remember who we are. So, and even I'll end with this because I don't know if people are gonna be listening to this and need to hear it, and hopefully this encourages them to do some history searching. We even know in South Carolina, most of the current land that is now downtown South Carolina, we don't know. We've been doing research to figure out what the hell happened, but we know that we owned that land, like 90% of it. That's hundreds of billions of dollars of real estate on that land now.
Man, I was
We
just
were
finna,
we
I
were
was
wealthy
finna
black,
ask you that.
yeah, we were wealthy native landowners, and we were the only black slash native family that had. I'm sorry, we were the first quote unquote black family on my grandmother's, the Bryant, to have a brick house in Greenville, South Carolina. Now this is 100 some years later, and I know this is 1800s. We had I my great great grandparents had their master's degrees.
Hmm.
So when they keep on telling us we were slaves, we didn't have nothing. No, a lot of us got jacked, got that land stolen because we were already here.
It's crazy, man. When you
And not
think about the
100%.
numbers, man, the pure numbers, like
Why are we the only
billions of
ones?
dollars of real estate and land that
Trillions of
yeah, that
trillions.
you have access to, like if things would have went right the right way.
So I just think it's time for us as a people to have a better glimpse of infinite possibilities for ourselves by having a better understanding of where we come from. So I'm not really here to stir the pot, nothing like that. I'm just telling you my own personal family history. But as more and more people are doing their research, they're like, wait a minute, we weren't just part there. That's us.
Mm.
And go back and look at some of those
Yeah,
symbols in history of natives. The terminology until the late 1800s was copper colored people. Look at the symbol of the Redskins. Aren't they our complexion? Where
right.
they at? Now the nose look different and the hair straight, but we got people in our family got straight hair. I got aunts and cousins that don't got curly hair, they got straight hair. Some
Yeah.
on light skin, some on dark skin. But I tell you what, they got a little couple of symbols that kind of indicate that they couldn't cover everything up because that redskin symbol is dark as hell. And I ain't seen none of them on no
Yeah,
reservation nowhere that is publicized.
it's
So it's very interesting
yeah,
about it. And so, like I said, I'm just, you guys ask me a question. I'm trying to be as truthful as possible. But the reason why we have infinite possibilities is because we have an infinite history that goes back further than written language or anything. We were here from the beginning, and we need to know that because we don't forgot and they're taking advantage of us because we don't know. And I'm not saying they as far as white people. I'm talking about the establishment, the governmental things, and all the other stuff. And whether it's
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy or not, I don't get to conspiracy. But whatever that force was to make us forget, it's time for us to wake up because we have so much within us, so much rich history, so much power, and it's more than just entertainment and sports. We have a history that is just as rich and deep as any other, including Egypt and all the other ones. There are pyramids on this land. That's why, like in Georgia, have you ever heard of the Georgia mounds? All they
Mm-hmm.
did was put sod and grass over pyramids.
Yeah. It's a pyramid in Illinois.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
just like South America. And who you think built those? So, some people that were killed off by smallpox blankets. Now, wouldn't that be some shit if you realized that was you
whole time.
the whole damn time? Why don't we know nothing? We
Right.
just slaved okay. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but I'm saying the majority already here. And for
Yeah.
some reason, they couldn't take us out. Whatever they tried to do, the Most High said, "Hell no," and we
Still
still
here.
here in the tens of millions. And I think it's time for our people to know. So I'm gonna go on record and just be honest. It's not about anyone else. No one's bad. This ain't a racial thing. This ain't about race. This is about understanding who we are and maybe that will take other people to just do a little bit of research, and maybe that could help to bridge the gap. If you know where you come from, maybe that will give you a little more motivation, inspiration to say, even though I may not be connected with my dad or whatever else, I know that I have a rich history. I need to focus on that, and I can be out here acting like this. I have grounding now. I'm not just out here as this Black poor person that's had 2-3 generations in the hood or poverty or whatever else, you know, and all the negative that come from that's not us. That, you know, they got their own ones, and I just think I keep on repeating it because it's just resonate with him. We have to know that stuff is not true. It was a lie. It is a lie. Look at who we are and how we impact the entire globe as the only ones that don't know who we are. What is that telling us spiritually? That's just giving us an indicator that there's something very powerful about us, even when we done forgot for the most part, even when most of us are completely asleep. Everybody in Africa, they want to be like LeBron James, they want to be like this person, want to be like this singer. Brazil, Europe, Asia, dancing like us. That's not because we cool and we're just the best dancers. That's a spiritual thing. We're spirit beings. So I'll stop there. But Black folk, and it is, stop calling yourself Black. Don't play that game. Everything from the etymology or the meaning of that word throughout history was negative. And we are not dead people. We are not lifeless people. Black implies death. Black implies no worth. So they're calling us dead people. Historically, not now, historically. Because they ain't about people who are living, because this did not start now. I'm gonna stop there because I'm gonna get fired up because after I did my research.
Yeah, that's why, man. I let you get the runway, man. You take off, man. Go ahead, man.
No, man. It's just, you know, once again, man, with all the pain that's going on in our world, a lot of us are blind, and I was too, and it's very painful to be blind. It's not just that you can't see; it hurts to be blind because you suffer automatic consequences from not being able to see or to know who you are and have grounding in this world. There's an automatic cost to be paid for that. There's automatic benefit to be gained by knowing who you are and being grounded. Fundamentally, beyond the money, because all those things are spiritual in nature. But if you're not grounded here, all the other stuff, it will always be just outside of your hands. And I remember living those days and feeling like that, like I'm always so close and then something goes wrong. What the heck is going on with me? But I wasn't right spiritually and I was still blind. And once I began to wake up, things changed. But it was me. It wasn't them. It was always me.
Nah, that's dope, man. That's
Yeah, man.
dope. And I know we kind of went.
Yeah.
Oh, what'd you say?
I apologize for getting on a little riff, but I've done a lot of podcasts and stuff, and I don't know, man. Maybe it's because I'm getting older now. It's just like, man, I gotta let my people know, like I'm about the corporate thing. I'm about I'm about getting my money. But man, I'm tired of seeing this nonsense. I'm tired of seeing us like this because it ain't just about me. Because we live in the suburbs and we good. We're the only Black folks in our street, and that's cool. But in my community, I would love for more people to feel comfortable and also have the means, which some do, but they don't necessarily feel comfortable in this area because of history of things that have happened in this city, to live in these nice areas and not have to worry about gunshots and things like that. And that's something that's very real for me because I remember hitting the floor at 6 years old when my parents first got divorced or split up, and we were living in an apartment on the bad side of town and having to hit the floor a few times before dinner after school. Nah, man, we better than that. So excuse my passion for us.
Good. It kind of ties back into the ownership piece. Like back then, you know what I'm saying, we had ownership, you know what I'm saying, as a people. You know, the whole nation was filled with ownership. And like that's priceless. So when they say 40 acres and a mule, I was talking to Dr. Young about it the other day. Like, man, they owe us 40 acres. Like, what's that worth today? Like, it's, you know what I'm saying? That's light compared to the stuff we actually own and what it's worth today.
From sea to shining sea, we owned.
Yeah.
We have been guardians of this land for, once again, time immemorial. There is no beginning end. Should tell you something. But we were guardians of this land, just like on other continents. Same principles. We were doing the same stuff. So from sea to shining sea is what we owe. But it's different now, and it wouldn't be about, you know, taking back all. It's like it's there are a lot of people who come here and it ain't their fault. but understanding that and then just operating within that power from a spiritual perspective, I think we'd be working together a whole lot better and be more strategic about just simply having something that's our own. And many other things will come with that. And I think that would be positive, because it ain't about doing that foolish or violent, because that's not our people. It's not about that. It's just about taking back what's ours and making our ancestors proud and saying, man, they finally woke up. They finally
Like
remember.
we are the guardians. That's when you realize, like, man, I'm a guardian too.
100%.
My kids are, and they're the next ones.
That's it. Amen.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, man. And it may seem kind of crazy, but like you spoke about like the ancestors and having soul, being able to dance, and that coming out through the culture and cooking and
Yeah.
that we eat, the music. Do you feel like racism cuts white people off from that aspect of like them being in tune with the spirituality and being in tune with their ancestors? And that's why like a lot of, well, I don't necessarily even know if they have culture, but a lot of they fall short in a lot of those areas.
Yeah,
So
I
what's your take on that?
I really can't speak for any other group of people, and and there are a lot of theories around that, and some of them are a little off, but some of them make sense. What I would say is that I perceive, I don't know this to be true, I perceive that there was something that maybe their ancient ancestors felt that there was missing, that we had, that they wanted beyond the gold and stuff. And so whatever that was, they were lacking it potentially, and they wanted to get connected to it and realize that whatever we had was so good that they wanted to take it over, or they wanted to diminish it. And the only thing that I can say from a psychological perspective of humans, of people, is that many times when you try to diminish other people, it's because you have insecurities. Now, what those are, I can't speak to those. And I'm not going to make a blanket statement about a group of people, because I got friends of all different backgrounds. And that's how I grew up in H-Town. So, it's not about that for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't answer as far as what that is. What I definitely can tell you in more recent times, as far as the work that I've been doing, is that there is a lot of white guilt. Not because once again, it's not about our generation. Even the grandparents and the old ones, even the baby boomers, they start with them, right? So I see, especially when I do D&I work, it's a lot of guilt, and so I think it's telling. Now, what that means for every individual of Caucasian background, you have to ask them. I don't know, but to me, I've always I've learned to look at every perceived disadvantage as a potential advantage. So my question then goes back to how I started. What does that mean? What is that indicating of who we not just were, but still are? How powerful were we, and how powerful was our culture and our history to where it had to be completely wiped clean, because they went into other countries and raided stuff and took stuff, but they still know where they come from. We don't know nothing. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's like we think we come from another continent. It's too many of us. Everybody couldn't come from somewhere else, man. Like, because you see in South America, a lot of people look like us, right? Right? And they say, what they were slaves. They came from Africa too, and they went to the. I don't buy that no more. They were already there too, and I can tell you what helped me to corroborate that. One fact now. About 10 years ago, the Mexican government finally acknowledged that there were over 10 million Afro-Mexicans in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
in the same physical area that the Olmec people, which is the oldest known culture in Mexico, which is those big stone heads with the wide noses and the braids to the back. That's
Yeah.
the oldest known culture and traceable in Mexico. They go back 20 plus thousand years. There were no borders of Mexico and U.S. That's like in the Yucatan. So those of us who were in the South, who grew up in the South, have history in the South, there were no borders in line. I'm not saying that we're directly connected to them, but what I'm saying is it only makes sense to let you know that those who were here look very similar to the original culture that they have monuments for, with the wide noses and the braids to the back. We still are having braids to the back to this day. So they're indicators that there's something about us in the Americas, the what I like to call now, to those who can handle it, the Aboriginals of America, that is so powerful that that shit had to be buried. Because other cultures, they may have shot the nose off the Sphinx, but they ain't try to bury it in the sand. They ain't put grass over and say, well, you can't know nothing about this. There's something about us. And everybody has a different answer as they're doing their research, but I'm just believing that in time, I think it's time that we just remember who we are, and that will lead everybody to different places. But I think that's a big important piece, and I'm hearing a lot of famous celebrities talk about it very openly. If you go to YouTube and you look, and if you guys have ever heard of Dane Calloway, Dane Calloway has interviewed a lot of celebrities, Waka Flocka. He hasn't interviewed Isaiah Thomas, but about 5 years ago, Isaiah Thomas, the Hall of Fame basketball player, he alluded to the same thing. He was like, "Look, this is not just celebration of what happened in 1492." He's like, "We've been here and we've always been here. We need to know that." And then they like cut the commercial. So a lot of us know this stuff, right? And I just think it's time for us people to know it. So yes, there may be some guilt, there may be something that we're missing, but I want us to focus on us. But what does that mean in regards to us? How powerful could we have been, and what do they not want us to remember that would say, oh, guess what? You come from one continent that has people of color, but actually y'all were everywhere, including England, everywhere else. Like that was all Aboriginal land at a certain point. But that's beyond recorded history. So I just want us to think about that as Blacks in America, and let the ancestral wisdom just flow up. And you might wake up one morning and something just hit you in the head. You just have a flashback of being a king or something. Who knows, right? But I think that's the power of the infinite possibilities within us. And I'm just thankful that I've had an opportunity and from a psychological mindset way, have an awakening, but also on the other side of the coin, as far as who we are, what's in our DNA. I'm beginning to just awaken to that, and just to search and find some good research. And apparently there's a lot of this history as far as who we really are from our heritage perspective that it still exists in the state archives, because in the 1780s they changed the I for Indian to N for Negro, and like they were mixing up certain tribes they would call Negro that apparently were us, and other tribes that they would call them it was Negro, mulatto, because some of the tribes were had good amount of fair skinned people just naturally, not mixed with others, just naturally, just like we are now. And so it was Negro, mulatto, and one other term, but it changed in the 1780s. And at the state archives, you go back and request it. You got to pay like a little fee, but as far back as it goes, you can actually find this stuff. Now my family's starting to do that as well. Now we already know because of our family history. We have a painting from the 1700s, and like my 5 times great aunt, she was very dark skinned, straight hair, and she was labeled at that time a runaway slave, but at the same time, as we learn more, we found out she was a native, and because there were separate families, a lot of stuff that talked about history, but it was from a different perspective. If you already was here, and she got separated from her daughter, whose name was Caroline, and so we know her daughter's name, but we don't know what happened with her daughter. And on my mom's side, as far we can go back, it's like early 1700s, and we have a painting of her from that time that still exists. And let me just tell you that the picture or that painting is scary as hell, because there was some anger and I think pain in those eyes. But we have like this 200+ year old painting, and I didn't really respect it back then. I was a little kid, and the painting was scary as hell. But it's like this is invaluable. Like, thank God that we were able to keep something like this. The family kept it. And we even know the name of her daughter, who was lost to history, could have died. We don't know, but we know her name. So that's just, once again, and that's just not me. If y'all don't already have the live access, I guarantee you start doing some digging, man, y'all be like, what the hell? and then you dig far back enough and see that your great grandpappy, he had Abai's name. Look, man, you might lose it, but in a good way though. Like, what would your soul say if you were able to find somebody like that? If that's your path and that's what if you decide to do that research or somebody in your family and uncover something like that, and what would that do for so many people, our people, that don't know where they come from, think you just come from slaves and all that kind of stuff? To me, the more and more you understand the media nowadays, that sounds like a narrative. Oh no, yeah. And then guess what they want to tell us that every once in a while, socially, not individuals, but socially, and the conditioning. Go back to Africa. Why? You got some shit you've been hiding?
Exactly.
Why we need to go back? Why? Maybe you just saying, hey, can you finish the process that we tried to start, or at least their ancestors tried to start to get us off this land because it was ours. And something did not allow them to destroy us. They couldn't do it. So they ain't gonna be able to do it now. That's why it's a spiritual thing. We got to figure this thing out and just come to know it. So I have these conversations every once in a while when I'm compelled, because I think that helps people to get excited about the potential of who we have always been, but to come to remember that. Because just like in the Lion King, like the whole thing where like Simba, like Rafiki came and found where he was and like led him through this like little jungle area. He was like getting scratched up by all the vines, and he finally got to that little open area with the little pool. And he looked down, and Rafiki said, "Look into the water. Your father's here." He looked down. He only saw his own reflection, and then Rafiki said, "Look harder," but with like a much more cool African accent. And he looked again. He saw his dad's face, which I think is your higher self. Looked up into the clouds. He said, "You have." He said, "You've forgotten me." And he was like, "I will never forget you, Dad." He was like, "You have forgotten who you are and so forgotten me." They be putting messages in that stuff, man. So y'all done got me on a tangent now. But I think,
No, that's a great one, man.
I think that's like an example and a glimmer of like what's happening in our current times, and what I think we want to call it ancestors or our history, whatever's powerful is in our DNA that go beyond athletics, whatever it is. It's like, look, y'all done forgotten it's time to wake up. You know what I'm saying? I think it's just time. Because we've suffered enough, and I think we've suffered from lack of knowledge more than anything. Because if you think you come from nothing, like it says in the Bible, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So it's not even healthy to think that way. I understand the narrative. I get it. But damn, what did that do to you psychologically if you think you come from nothing? And then on top of that, you might not know your father or your mother, or has been in a poverty situation from as far as your grandmother. Like, dang. That helps to explain what's going on, because without hope the people perish. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you just lost in that way spiritually, not religiously but spiritually, and there's no grounding, because learning these things just about my actual family history, it's done something for me. I operate in a different way, because now I know. So I'll stop.
No, keep going, bro. No, man, this has been great, man. This is I would say we can mark this as a Hall of Fame episode, Dr. Young. We got Hall of Fame episodes. We can dub this as one of those. Hanging in the rafter right now.
Yeah. It's all the fun.
I don't think we planned on talking about Native American and all this other kind of stuff. But once again, I was a kid that grew up that thought I had any in my family too. And I remember I was in my early 20s and I was with my aunts, and my aunts are like the story for the family on both sides, my mom and my dad's side. And they start telling history and they start showing pictures and records and things like this. And then everything that they were talking about, they were like, and he and she was this, and she was from this tribe and this and that. And I was like, I'm not hearing no African. Like, hold on, wait a minute. I thought the understanding was that we had Native in our family and African. But like, well, that's what some of the records say. But then what you guys are describing and talking about is only talking about where they were and the Native roots. That's all I'm hearing. So which one is it? Do we have, we former slaves or not? Because, none. And they're like, we actually don't know. And then I started doing more research. And that was like, actually, William, based on the record that we can find, like we can see like how they were labeled, but we also know that they had certain traditions. They understood the land and certain herbs, and that they had that kind of knowledge. Like, I mean, anybody that works a certain land can know that. I'm not saying you have to be a native enough, but there's Indian burial grounds on my grandparents' land to this day. It was just the rocks. It wasn't like, because it wasn't like, the headstones, but they don't know who, because it was a label. They don't know who was in there.
Mm-hmm.
And like great grandfather just out in the backyard was the traditional Indian burial. It's like, hey, okay. So all these little things led me on a search, and I just encourage everyone. You don't necessarily know how powerful it can be to know who you are at a spiritual and historical level. I didn't either, but the research that I've been uncovering and seeing, it gives me a different level of confidence to move in this world, and I feel, in a way that I can't describe, a certain level of protection. Like, I know that I'm good, and I've always believed in God. Grew up Christian, and that's a blessing. But there's something just about that bloodline too that I think is also important. So thank you all for just allowing me to be on, and at the very end, riff a little bit about my family history and things that I've uncovered. I'm sure people some people are gonna be like, oh man, what are you talking about? Nothing. Just go and look, find out for yourself, and if it doesn't resonate, that's okay. But I can tell you, once I did my research, hell no, I'm not from Africa. I'm not African, but I am Native. I am Aboriginal, just like they are on their country, and that's a blessing. That's good to know that, and I know who I am. I ain't got to be doing no search. I got to do ancestry.com to find out where I'm from, the Horn of Africa, or from have part of my folks from Ireland. I didn't know that. Nope. I am where we've been, and that's good enough.
Remember that skit from Dave Chappelle where he went back in time in the time machine, the player haters, and Charlie Murphy had a ancestor that looked just like him, like exactly like him. Like I can only imagine you have someone in your lineage back in thousands of years ago that were here that looked just like yourself, like literally from the hair, the beard, everything, like looks exactly like you. That's how powerful like our bloodline is. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, and they're still with us, right?
Exactly.
Like, I remember some years ago. I forgot who it was, but somebody was talking about ancestors. As soon as somebody mentioned about ancestors, I was like, all right, there they go. And it's funny, all these years later, I'm like, actually, you know what? I don't remember who said that, but these kind of things just make sense now. Like, it's not a foreign or crazy idea to be able to think about these things, like, and how powerful is it going to be as we begin to remember, first and foremost, just to be connected to our roots again, to be connected to a deeper purpose. Like me, so this is the best example, and I will say nothing else about this. Me now knowing, and I just found this out a year and a half ago about, and I keep on forgetting his name, but he was, and they know he was a Cherokee chief along the Santee River. To know that just over 100 years ago, my great grandfather was a Cherokee chief. He was a leader in that area. He led a large territory. He lived through the generation that the land, through different means, was swindled away from him, because Native didn't do contracts like that. That was a European concept. And to know that, and I'm like, why didn't y'all tell me this? Like, how did y'all know this all these years? I'm talking about, it's like, how? He's like, well, I mean, we just forgot. I'm like, okay. So I was down, I was on the East Coast about a month ago, and they told me his name, and put it like this, and this is where I'll stop. When they told me what his name was, it's just like something hit me. Like, wait, so he was a real, like, he was an act, like the feathers and the traditional. He was like, dang. And for whatever reason, I keep on forgetting his name. It must be a reason that's happening, so I need to remember for a reason. But when they told me his name, they started with an E, but I think it was Ethan or something like that. which also is a good indicator that some of these names that we think are European aren't. Because I think it was an American sounding name, but he was a Cherokee chief, and they weren't they weren't overran by Europeans. They still had the land. But something just hit me. Like, I guess I'm gonna sound spooky now, but like the ancestors just hit me like boom, like remember something. You need to keep on learning. So I am. I just encourage other people to whether it does trace back to Africa or the Bahamas, wherever else. But once you know, I think I feel, and it's happening to me, something changes in a good way. And it's like a whole nother level of pride and accountability. I now know that, and it just adds to what I know about my family and the men in my family. So I got to be upright. I got to live the right kind of way. We literally come from, leadership from our traditional thing that I still know not hardly anything about. But I'm going to continue to learn more. And that's something you can stand on in this world. Like, you can't just be out here living any kind of way, and your great grandfather was Native American chief. That's like knowing your great granddaddy was like governor of California. You just gonna have to be acting a fool?
Yeah.
What? No, because like it's not a mystery. So I'll stop there.
Oh, this was dope, man. This was dope. If anybody wanted to like get in contact with you, can you let the people know how they could reach you or follow you?
Yeah. So on LinkedIn, I think that I have handled on LinkedIn now. It's a William B. Deck. Or actually, I'm sorry, it's William Deck in the search engine. But if you use the @ symbol, it's @William.B as in boy .deck. On Instagram, it's the same @William.B as in boy .deck, D as in David, ECK. And the same thing, because I have the handle feature on Facebook @William B Deck. And so, that's where you can definitely find me. I'm doing different inspirational posts, talking about some of these mindset transformation principles. And I've just revamped my social media presence. So I'm now taking my followers on a journey of self-discovery. And so it's very curated and focused now, because I want to make sure that I'm adding tangible value that helps to build upon it. So you can go back to the old videos and just kind of, continue to learn. And yeah, if there's any questions, potential opportunities, to work together, to support something I'm doing, for me to support something that you're doing, I'm open to all that. And I'm just very thankful for, for honestly, the challenges that we face as a world over the past 1.5 to 2 years, because I think it's waking a lot of people up, and they're asking critical questions about their lives and what they want to do and what they want to be. And even though it's been very challenging, people have died, all kind of different things. I think it's also an opportunity if we see it as such. And history tells us that in the toughest times, the greatest men and women come forward, the greatest businesses, the greatest opportunities are there in the midst of the ashes. And I want people to know that. Don't have your head down. Don't listen to the news. This is the best opportunity, spiritually and otherwise, to do something amazing. And so challenge yourself and help support one another. And you'd be shocked what the power of these next couple of years as we go through these other transitions can be for you in a positive way. And that's what we did. That's a big reason we started the business, because we understood history. And history says in famines or in challenging times, economically, whatever else, great things come from the ashes. So I just encourage all of you all to be that phoenix for your family, rise from the ashes, and go after what you want, what you really want. Trust that small, still voice, because it's important to do that. And so
Wow,
yeah, man, connect with me, whatever. If I can encourage you, if you see something I'm posting, if I follow you and you got some dope information or something that's inspiring, I'm always learning too, because I'm just trying to do my small part, but I'm gonna do that, and everything else will happen as it needs to.
yeah, man, great stuff, man.
Yeah.
My last question to you is a question we ask normally at the end. If you had to give advice to any dad that's listening to this right now, what would that be?
I would say, number one, heal. All of us have things that we need to be healed from, and whatever you don't heal from, you're going to pass on and perpetuate that pain and that brokenness to your children, whether male nor female. So it is important for you as an individual to have the courage to heal or go on the healing journey, mind, body, and spirit. Um, and outside of that, I would just say trust that small, still voice. You know more than you give yourself credit for. And once again, because there is this great power within us, whether we talk about from the historical perspective that we've been talking about at the end, or just in general, as a being, as a man, you have to take a responsibility and take it seriously. And all things are going to work out for you. Just trust yourself, be kind, heal, um, and you'll be surprised how powerful just trusting yourself actually is, because that small, still voice tends to be calm, and it tells you the truth, even if it's not what you want to hear. And that'll help you a lot. That's your inner guide. Some call it the mind of Christ. Other people call it the higher self. Whatever your religious or faith-based, it's the same thing. So trust it, which is really a part of trusting yourself. Be good.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, Dr. Young, did you have anything else? That was great.
No, I didn't have any more questions. I just want to say thank you, William, man. You brought a lot to the podcast today, man. I appreciate you.
No, man, I appreciate you guys having me on, and as I've already said, let me ramble just a little bit at the end, because once again, man, I just, for whatever reason, and I'm a fairly young, I'm 35, but I just have this strong sense that for my family, for our extended, national and global family, like, it's just time for us to heal and to let truth, be our guide. And I mean, being right or wrong, or you right and other people are wrong, it's just coming to that deep knowing, um, that I think that I've seen, and I think for others is necessary to be able just to let go of a lot of pain that has led us down the wrong path. But every path can be made straight again. There's still bricks being made, right? Whether it's intellectually or physical. If the road gets messed up, you're gonna repair the road. You don't say, "Well, if the road is messed up, I can't get there, and people will keep me from getting there." No, you make your own road, or work together with your brothers and sisters and make some roads. Um, but all those things we've been doing anyway. But now we have the power of technology, so leverage it. And I would love to work with others who are just trying to make an impact. I'm trying to do something positive, trying to help get us thinking differently. That's my focus, as you can tell. Thinking differently, new ideas. You have to believe what I believe, but if that seed needs to fall in your plot of ground, in your mind, and it germinates and helps to lead you in the right direction, good.
Mm.
If that seed isn't good for you, that's cool too. But there are many things that people that I respected and I respect much more now said. Initially, it seemed like that seed didn't plant. It was like, whatever. And then then at a certain point, you're gonna be having a conversation with your son, and he's 5 and you 40, and something going and the seed's gonna sprout up, and you're like, oh, my dad was right, my grandfather was right, my mama was right, right? So, um, but that's life. Seed time and harvest. So it's all good, man. But I'm just very encouraged, and I'm not gonna say anything negative about my people. I don't believe the hype, and I encourage no one else to. If it's negative, it doesn't matter what the reason is or what the facts are. There's a difference between facts and truth. And truth we have to operate on, especially in these days and time. Facts and statistics are there too many times to hurt you and make you think less of yourself. And because the power of the subconscious mind, once you believe it and get it repeating in your head, then you will destroy yourself. But now we have to come and understand truth, and let whatever that is for us resonate, and don't let it be based on externals. It has to be more internally led, what feels right, trusting that small stuff voice. That's why I talk about that a lot, because that's the only way many times to separate um, falsehood from truth. And no one is the one keeper of truth, but facts and information and all the other kind of stuff that we seen on TV and all that kind of stuff. You listen to that stuff if you want to, but it's pretty clear at this point where they trying to send all of us. Okay, it ain't nowhere good. So don't mess with facts and all that foolishness, because that's not what ancestors lived off of. They lived off of universal truths, and that's why they were making it for we don't even know how long, but we can go back at least about 30,000 years in Egypt and maybe even further based on some of the records in Mexico with the Olmecs. So we know we've been here a long time, and we just recently got off track. So this is just a little blip in our history, and we'll be back on pretty soon. And hopefully it'll start with our generation.
Right now.
Sure enough.
Right damn now.
Because that damn TV is a lie. That's the devil, the damn TV.
Man. Yeah, man, this has been great. William, man, I definitely appreciate you, man. This has been one of my favorites, man. I keep saying that, man. We've been on the road, man. The last probably like 10 episodes have been like, oh my God, it keeps getting better and better. So definitely glad to have you on and for you to be a part of that, man. It's been amazing. So
yes, sir.
Definitely kudos to you and what you're doing. For myself, for Sir Royce Briales, for Dr. Raheem Young, and William Jack, please don't hang up. We're going to have a little powwow after this, man. A little cool down. Thanks for listening to WTF Interviews, and stay tuned for further announcements.